I lay beside the door for some time, just trying to calm down. It wasn't entirely possible, as my chest heaved and my dry breath stuttered under sniffles. My chest was burning, enough that I downed my rat away as a precaution. Mercifully, yet horribly, the burning feeling died down. How long had I been down here that my irradiated lungs were acting up again on their own with no radiation? Now ahead of me lay more stairs, angling down even deeper. What was this? A fifth floor? I felt 1,000,000 miles from any pony else, from Philadelphia and from the clouds. Trotting steadily and slowly, I moved into the last depths of the stable. There was light here, but not from any panels above. Terminals littered every room that I passed by, each active as they cast little islands of green light in either small rooms or the bigger, widened hallway that I was entering. Smashed chalkboards and broken vats had smothered the floor in shards of ceramic, or almost solid, but still sticky liquids. Feeling my hooves needing to be tugged up from some of it to the floor in some places, I prayed this wasn't anything toxic. Clearly, these were the science levels. All my imaginations of some giant mad laboratory were broken as I found little more than offices and shared work tables, haphazardly fitted into a stable not originally intended to fit a science team. This might have once been extra living areas. The larger room up ahead may have once been a storage area, perhaps? Cantering from green light to green light, I hopped between illuminated islands as I made my way in. I wasn't even at the main room up ahead when I began finding the corpses. Strewn over tables or collapsed in doorways, each dusty skeleton was surrounded by clear bullet holes. Whimpering, I staggered away from them into a side room, only to find one that had hid behind her desk. An image of a foal in a picture frame lay on its side, scarred by a passing round. The terminal flickered loyally, awaiting input that I could never give. I took a long and slow breath, trying not to get overwhelmed, before cantering out into the hallway again. Little brass shells at my hooves pinged and skittered away when I moved past. I quickly galloped on, closing my eyes as I saw more and more, an unending cycle of remains, all of them trying to move the same way I had done before being brought down. Reaching the main room, I finally opened my eyes and my hooves thankfully got to my mouth before the scream emerged. It was in there, moving idly between desks in front of a series of odd machines and copper constructs. Unable to focus, I could only see the vague presence of the haunting specter floating around and over the middle of the room. The head cast itself around to each glow of green light before making its way toward me. I had nowhere to go. Crouching behind one of the desks, apologizing constantly under my breath as I was forced to move a skeleton out of the place it had tried to hide in, I shivered at its passing. The static had stopped once the recording ceased, mercifully giving me silence to hide. Unfortunately, it meant I had no way to track it. Unable to constrain my curiosity, my head, goggles firmly on, peeked out. Was it coming any closer? Yes, it was! I pulled myself back sharply. It had only been a few feet away, that head turning quickly as I'd made my move. A low, dirging ambience began to soundlessly make my head stuffy and my ear ache as I felt it wash over the desk above me. My goggles were steaming up, the urge to scream, to holler and beg for mercy becoming too much. Finally, it was over. The pressure in the air seemed to pass away. Shaking so much my loose tooth was chattering painfully, I raised my head over the desk. How had it not seen me? Did it just not care? It was moving away, down another passageway. I saw the contrails of darkness shifting ever darker through the terminal's distant glow. But upon the desk was something new. Another recorder. It was different, more modern, as best I could identify, which pretty much involved how shiny it was, and bore the same connections for my pitbuck. Ejecting the last one, I placed it within my saddlebag and clicked the next one into place. I was beginning to suspect it wanted me to hear these. Was I the little future ghost sneaking around to its perception as much as it was to me? How did ghosts see? Was it as afraid of me as I was of it?
Personal Journal of Lead Arcane Scientist Night Breeze. Starting day 1. I apologize if this is a little breathless.
A dull thoom echoed in the background. Ponies screamed, and a great amount of commotion sounded in the recording. Wandering from my hiding spot, I entered the main room, surrounded by the clustered groups of pony remains.
Well, That was Philadelphia. It's gone now. We barely got here on time. Technically, we didn't have a pass, but we rushed up and the overmare let us in. A kind soul if there ever was one. Now we've got to start developing ways that this stable could support us all.
She paused. Her voice sounded authoritative, even if terrified. The air of some pony used to getting her way was obvious. If she'd told me to do something, I'd probably have leapt to do it.
Sorry, this is just... I'm trying to give myself things to do, trying not to think about what's going on outside. The very thing we tried to prevent. I tried to get Ministry Hub leader Aurora Star down here, but we couldn't find her. I think she was still in the city, but right now we have to get set up in here and get back to work. She left very explicit instructions in the event we got separated. I am to make this stable into a place of hope however I can. Create arcane technologies that we could reconstruct the world when we open. Aurora's theory of stored memory will be my first aim, as will the continuation of my own research into giving greater natural immunity. We will be ready for when the time comes to confront the wastes in 100 years. I should go.
The recording seemed to end, yet the pitbuck kept playing. I heard something vaguely, like a pitter-patter of hooves. Squeaking, I whirled, expecting to look right into dead eyes, but all I saw was an empty science chamber around me. Perhaps just that thing moving around again. I wasn't disturbing anything. Cantering further in to get more cover, I moved amongst the workbenches in the high room. Little orbs rested on them, most gray and dead. A few shone dimly of all colors in the spectrum. Occasionally, some glowed as bright as my pitbuck with incandescent swirling power within. I didn't dare touch them. I didn't need any more ghostly visits. My mind seemed settled, but I could feel I was on a knife edge. That all it would take was one thing to push me over the edge, into a blind horror of what was going on around me. Skeletons. Dead places. Ponies killing ponies over something I didn't know. I was one realization away from something awful. That I knew for sure. Without the thought of Glimmer and Brim searching amongst these levels somewhere, I may have been lost to the darkness some time ago.
Right. Day 7, I think. I've had to make some adjustments to this place. For one, I'm now the overmare. A regrettable decision, but frankly I had to. She was lovely, but incompetent. Allocated the wrong resources and made shifts so inefficient that the stable would barely last 20 years, never mind a century. What was Scootaloo thinking when she sent the overmare invite to her? We held a vote, with the greater scientists and many of the more intelligent stable dwellers voting for me. Some may say it was a rigged vote. I just call it a confident one. I've taken control of the stable systems and transferred pitbuck control to the scientists. We helped invent the things before some of us moved to the ministry, so why not? The theories we brought are adapting well. So long as those residents don't get in our way, we'll be ready to combat the wastes decades ahead of schedule. It'll give us time to get used to using this stuff. Got to go.
The audio seemed to cut again. Presumably, she kept her diaries all on one recorder. While listening, I trotted over to the walls, looking in on experiments set up in adjoining rooms through interior windows. The overall shape of the stable was beginning to form in my mind. Multiple levels, each with one big room and a ton of adjoined spaces surrounded by corridors and peripheral facilities. The top level had the atrium. Next was the schoolhouse, then the apple trees, and now this. Where was Glimmer? She would understand what all of this was. I just wanted to find her and get out. Get back to Philly. Start planning the escape. All this was just a distraction. A meaningless job that would never change my life other than to terrify me. At most, I wondered if anything in here might help us escape. Perhaps there was some sort of invisibility spell. Something to sneak by the guards in the waist with no problems. Yet around me there was no such immediately obvious thing. The giant machine I trotted past seemed to hold little trays meant for cupcakes. Like a baking tray? Was that what my old master called them? A quick size comparison told me that they were the same shape as the orbs I had just seen.
Week 3. Research continues well. The memory transference process is becoming a little tough. No doubt this is the problem Aurora spoke of. Apparently, Twilight Sparkle herself proclaimed it to be impossible without an external power source large enough to... well, I don't know. I'm finding the same problem. We can create loops temporarily, even residual talent, but nothing like what Aurora proposed last year. But I will make this work. Memories have power. That's what it all revolves around. The past can teach us and empower us as we remember the important times and elements of it. That's what she told us over and over. Memories hold power. What is it that drives a pony forward? What makes you who you are? It's the experiences you had. But what if we could play around with that? I'm having to withhold the information from the residents. Simple reason, really. Chief Aurora Star told me that the Ministry had found evidence of a zebra informer amongst the Ministry of Wartime Technology in Philadelphia, and many of the stable residents worked there. As such, all research is now withheld only to those ponies working on it and myself. Regardless of what the residents think, I'm not going to release information. Aurora Star died trying to protect our work. I won't disobey her last request to me before we parted. All the same, those residents are getting restless. That paranoid moron, Sculpt. He wants a recorded meeting about all this. I won't endanger our way of life to satisfy pointless curiosity. This is sensitive work. We don't need ponies without our intentions seeing it. Who knows what they might make of what we're doing here?
The clink of something touching metal came from behind me. Spinning on the spot, I whirled to look behind me. Behind the table I saw a wheeled terminal trolley gently rolling to a stop. My blood froze, and I looked around. I could see nothing. No static came from the pitbuck. This wasn't good. Cantering nearer to the wall, I slid behind the huge machine. A way out. I needed a way out of this room. Glancing out and around, my eyes fell on the scaffold staircase haphazardly built to the balcony, lit in the pitch black by 3 nearby terminals. It led to another room at the far end up 1 level, almost only visible from the terminal inside it, casting a haze through the window. If I could only get in there. It had less ways to have to look for anything coming. I could bunker down for a bit. Lowering to the ground, I felt a sensation that I was not only being watched. My head flicked around at the drifting movement I sensed. No, definitely more than watched. I was being hunted. Calling on every ounce of stealth I had, I canceled the recording and turned off my light before doubling back. If they had seen my light, and of course they would have, then they may not expect me to move backwards. Did ghosts think like that? Heart in my mouth, I began the slow creep forward in the dark. Only little islands of light guided my way, beacons that I could not enter for fear of being noticed. I had to stay in the dark, the same dark that was slowly scaring me witless. Gently pushing a seat aside, sneaking below a desk and crawling between the struts of a scaffold construct, I gingerly made my way to the stairs from the other side. Checking every angle, I saw nothing. I cursed my ear. If only I could hear properly. Hoof by hoof, I began to move up the stairs, hoping against hope that none of them would creak or flex. My eyes scanned the room below as I moved up and out of it. Each desk lit by the active terminals revealed nothing. Was it just my imagination? A shadow passed by the end of one desk. The panic rose inside me. Something was definitely down there, where I'd just been. Quickening my pace, I cantered off the stairs, every little creak and rattle feeling like a gunshot to give me away. As soon as I was able, I quickly headed into the room. Higher-level equipment surrounded me, filled with fancier materials that shone from the terminal's light. Glancing at the screen, I saw an old stain across it. Blood. Hooves clamped over my mouth to contain the shriek. I backpedaled away from it, falling over the edge of a bed and landing on my pitbuck. Hard. The recorder wailed at the disturbance, fast-forwarding madly until I finally hoofed it to make it stop. Instead, it merely resumed. No matter what I hit, it wouldn't stop.
Week 5. You have to wonder why the residents get so worked up and paranoid. What do they think we're working on here? Weapons?
Grabbing the musty blanket from the bed, I wrapped the pitbuck in my leg in a shred of it, trying to dull the sound. I could hear it, but no pony else could. Shivering, I pressed against the bed and cradled myself with my front hooves. It was all beginning to catch up. The sheer tragedy that had happened in this place. The horrid intentions of a few ponies dooming many others.
Things are starting to heat up. Personally, I'm a little scared. The residents have gone quiet. I've ordered the others to stand watch and only go out if they need to. Some of them have asked if we should take up guns. I refused. No need of them. We are scientists, not soldiers. Overmare! Overmare! What is it? Slinky Spot spotted the residents on the cameras. You need to see this.
Shuffling and running sounds passed through the recorder as the overmare apparently forgot to turn it off. I heard the noises of the same creaky stairs I had come up. Sneaking forward and peering over the window lip, my eyes traced them all the way to the bank of monitors I saw on the far side still sparking away.
What the? They have guns, Overmare! They're coming this way! Get ready to lock all doors. Spot, don't worry. I'm sure they're just trying to make a statement. Not the best way, but even Scoped isn't insane to actually attack us. We're all ponies. Ma'am, that shellcracker's still out there. He was going off shift. They're going to run into him. Oh no.
I heard familiar sounds through the recording from the monitors the overmare was watching.
Hey, what are you all doing?
It was the same scientist they'd locked in the storage room.
Shit, grab him. Wait, what? Get off me! Get off!
The sound of cans and tins rattled across the speaker, making me wince and hold my ear.
You might warn them. Mommy, take out their camera before they spot us. Somebody grab him. All of them.
There was a single gunshot. Static washed in as the screen obviously went dead.
They killed him.
No, they didn't.
How could they? Overmare, what do we do? Track their pitbucks on the security grid. If they come anywhere past the memorial room, set the stable commands to lock their position and vent the room. What? They're coming to kill us, Spot. It's a last resort if they don't think better of this, or we see evidence elsewise. Just stay calm. Oh, Equestria.
Everything was beginning to fall into a horrible place.
Overmare! They're in the memorial room. They've just sent out a message to get every pony into their own rooms. That means that they're coming right here, ma'am. Doesn't it? It does, Spot. I can't believe this. We're not doing anything but peaceful research in here. Why couldn't they just calm down and trust us? It's just procedure to keep it secret in a time of war. I never thought. Overmare, they're about to move. Out of the way. I'll send the command myself. Get me the records. Track only pitbuck codes from those we've seen with guns.
There was some playing around and sounds of leafing sheets.
I'm ready. They're about to move! Oh, Equestria, forgive me for this.
A hoof struck a button. Whining turbines sounded in the background. A science pony was crying in the background.
Pitbuck signal detected. Memorial room. Depressurization routine. Active. It's done. Pitbuck signal detected. Living chamber C5. Depressurization routine. Active. What? It's activating on the living chambers. It just sealed Runnerbean's family. What? No! Pitbuck signal detected. Living chamber. G1, 2. Depressurization routine. Active. Stop it! What's going on? I can't... It's like they've synced up all the pitbucks in the entire stable. Pitbuck signal detected. Living chamber. A4. Depressurization routine. Active. Pitbuck signal detected. Living chamber. E1. Depressurization routine. Active. Pitbuck signal detected. Living chamber. A3. Depressurization routine. Active. By Celestia. What have we done?
Living chamber after living chamber. It reeled through them all. The ministry ponies sat in shocked silence. Curling up on the overmare's bed and stuffing my face in the covers to stifle my whimpers, I finally felt the weight of the entire situation coming down on my shoulders. As the sequence finally ended, the scientists mutely tried to come to terms with it.
It was an accident. We can repopulate or... Hey, what are you doing down? You killed every pony.
Sculp's voice was distant, but racked with horror, sadness, and fury.
You killed every pony. All to safeguard your own sick designs or whatever you need to hide from us. I won't let you do it. I won't let you.
Gunshot after gunshot. Screams, panic, begging, and rage mixed in one long cacophony of violence through the pitbuck. The Overmare had run. I heard the clacking of steps as she retreated up here. Gunfire below kept track of Sculp's rampage through the science areas. The Overmare's desperate breathing was close to the recorder. Eventually, I heard the stairwell again. Sculpt must have come up here directly.
And you telling me it was all fine, but all along you had the stable primed to kill us. I didn't. It was a mistake. The pitbucks were... You were coming to kill us with guns. We were doing no such thing, you liar. Your secrets and lies have killed my entire stable. The last Overmare should never have let you in. Everything we have down here is peaceful. Why can't you see that? Secrecy is just procedure. Look around. I just witnessed my family die. All my friends and their loved ones. And you try and tell me this is procedure? It was you.
His weapon roared. Sculpt screamed. That fatherly tone lost to incoherent grief at the loss of every pony he knew. I knew without a doubt the Overmare was dead. Only Sculpty's breathing took over, eventually succumbing to tears before the entire recording cut. Nothing had ever been wrong. Not once.
Wonderfully tragic, isn't it, Philly?
Every inch of my body froze.
Even in a place with nothing wrong, ponies still find a way to let horrors take place.
Daring to turn my face from the wet covers, I saw him. He was sat in the Overmare's chair, his magic holding various trinkets around him as his slave knife sharpened itself on a little whetstone.
Behind closed doors, locked in the dark, the place ponies were never meant to be in. Just as in the tale of Nightmare Moon, they succumbed to fear and hate. There never was anything wrong in this stable. No flaw, no experiments, and plenty of supplies. More than usual, in fact. Add in a full team of arcane scientists. Well, it seemed so perfect. But ponies were not meant to live in the dark, hidden from the light of Celestia's sun or majesty of Luna's moon.
He advanced, flowing in the dark. Shadows twisted around his horn as the dark wreathed and became part of him. Barb didn't so much trot as just drift. His long dark mane idly mixed with the black aura around him. Suddenly I saw why he kept it long, and his clothes ragged. It meshed into magical shadows to give the impression of an ethereal foe in dark places.
In fact, this stable is the perfect little analogy of the war itself, you know? Two sides, both afraid of the other, unwilling to see the other's viewpoint and terrified what they might do. Fear driving their emotions to extremes, to do the things they would never dream of, to take steps they do not fully understand the consequences of, and then whimper and beg for salvation when it all comes crashing down around them.
He stopped, grinning that freakishly white smile at me in the darkness.
Trapped in the dark, we reveal the worst qualities we have, so some say. Just as Nightmare Moon became the monster she was, do ponies living without freedom eventually give way to their inner demons? In the same way that the wasteland and cloud cover make sadistic bastards like me. This stable created the paranoid division of sides, and you can see the aftermath right here. Their own little version of the war that ended the exact same way. Both sides, all gone.
My voice felt minuscule against it all. It's horrible. Barb chuckled, his form solidifying as he trotted closer to me, deactivating whatever spell had cloaked him in darkness. His hoof pulled me from the bed. Almost like a friend pointing out a vista, he waved his hoof before him.
Now we have but a lovely residence where the dark and memories come together. I would make it my home if I could. This is a wonderful little office up here, the place where it ended.
But how long? My voice whimpered, breaking and becoming shrill with fear. I began backpedaling, falling off the bed to try and stay away from Barb. His magic merely pulled me back in.
Oh, since I saw you come to this floor with your little nightlight on. See, being able to move stuff around with your horn to make some pony think you're behind them is a wonderful talent. Something you Pegasi could never do in the art of stealth. For all that light-hoofed nature, you enjoy the trip down here as much as I did?
No. Without a word I turned to gallop away, before finding the door rapidly shutting ahead of me. Shadows around Barb's horn deepened, that stealthy magic aura of his affecting all it needed to in order to keep me in.
Now don't run yet, little filly. We're still waiting for my compatriots to get back. My elite, the Shades. The betrayer had his big four, but I have the Shades. Always preferred to have something won before I've even started, you see. They've been working their magic, literally all around this place to find all its little secrets, trinkets, and belongings. You may have run into them on your way. This is their training, you see. Only so much you can do in the mall. Brimstone's more direct methods may have worked out in the wastes, but my plans for Philadelphia, well, they need a little more subtlety. Which reminds me of your role in all this.
Still reeling from the tragedy of the stable, I barely even noticed the change in subject until it became more obvious. Me?
Yes, you, Philly. Now, once they're back, we'll see about what we're going to do with you, my little deal-breaker.
He stuck to his word. I hadn't brought him anything from the crater. I tried. I really did. A mine. A blue mine. I picked it up for you, but...
But?
I had to use it. Barb chuckled, the sound coming from all directions as he trotted to the side.
A mine. Singular. Oh, now, aren't you proud?
He was so calm. No direct threats, just an honest word on what he would do, and the mindset to do it. More than Brimstone's rage, more than every raider's insanity, that coldness to simply do bad things terrified me to the absolute core. I'm no help to you. Please, I won't tell any pony what you're planning.
Frankly, Philly, I don't trust you on that. Look at you, down here alone with me, and you can hardly hold the piss in you. If Shackles questioned you, do you really mean to tell me that you'd stay silent?
Barb merely laughed under his breath at my despondent expression. He had me there.
Now come on, Philly. My students are returning.